Well, hi there. My name is Pat Fader, and I wanted to run through using roaming profiles, mandatory profiles, talk a bit about NTFS permissions, how they relate to these, as well as access-based enumeration. So, for starters, what I've done is I have two virtual machines that we normally use for ITnet 112, and I took them back to snapshot number 5. So I did this for both of them. And what I need to do right away on the Windows 7 machine is have it join our domain. And that should just take a second here. So we'll join the domain. Before doing this, I actually verified the IP settings on both machines. The Windows 7 machine as well as the server are on the same subnet, and the Windows 7 machine, its DNS setting is pointing to our domain controller, which is also a DNS server. Alright, I had hit the pause button, but I guess the first time I typed the password and it was wrong, so I typed it in again, and we could see that my Windows 7 machine joined the domain, and it's going to want to restart, which is fine. So we'll restart this. Restart now. And then let's jump on to the domain controller, server 01, server 01. So for the roaming profile demo, I'm going to use the user accounts that are in the test OU, so test user 1 and test user 2. Both of these users are also part of the global group test group G. So there, on that line to you. What I have to do real quick, and this is in case you're kind of doing this at home, is open up our group policy management. And there is, if you take a look on the test OU, a group, this took me a few seconds. There is a group policy attached to that if we took a look at it, it disables users from accessing the control panel, which kind of gets in the way of the demo a little bit. So let's just, for this, disable the link so now that OU no longer applies. Okay, so now that our Windows 7 machine has joined the domain, I'm going to log on as test user 1. Before I do that, I am going to reset the password on both of these machines, or both these accounts. I think they're also locked. Locked user account. One down, one to go. Done. Okay. So now I can go back to the Windows 7 machine here, and I'm going to log in. And the only point in doing this, I like to think I have a point to do most stuff, but I'm going to skip activation, is I just want to show you that when we do log on to a client, I'm going to hit this, I'm going to resize the screen so it fits our window. Okay. If you're ever moving your VM machines around, the size of your windows around, if you just go under View, Fit Guest Now, that it's nice. It basically fits your desktop to whatever window your virtual machine's running in. So I've logged on as test user 1. If I put a few items on the desktop, family photos, or whatever else. Make a few changes here. These all these settings that we're doing are being stored in the user's profile. So I've logged on as test user 1, and things like what I put in the desktop. There's a photo I put in. The desktop settings, or the background, has also been stored in the profile as well. So this is a local profile, and then when we convert this or have test user 1 use a roaming profile, what will happen is this profile will be stored on a server, and when the user logs in, it'll be copied down from the server. Then it'll be just modified locally, and then when the user logs off, it gets copied back up to the server. And Microsoft does allow, for the case of like what happens if the server's down. Well, then the local profile gets used, and then when the next time the user logs in, that local profile will get uploaded back up to the server and overwrite the out-of-date profile on our server. So that's in a nutshell how roaming profiles work. We'll talk a bit about mandatory profiles, and pretty much think of it as like a roaming profile, except that you never are copying the local profile back up to your server again. So once you have it, it's copied and it's good. All right, here. So let's make a roaming profile. The first thing that we're going to do is I can log off here, I guess. And there are permissions assigned to those roaming profiles. So for example, if I logged on as test user 2, I would not be able to access test user 1's profile data. Makes sense. Well, I have to first set up a shared folder to store our profiles. And I think I will pick the clever name of profiles for that. Good. And as far as sharing goes, we have to set the appropriate share and NTFS permissions on this. For what it's worth, I mean, you can get lazy and just assign everyone full control, and you know it's going to work, except that's kind of a big security hole. You might want to, pretty much only assign what you need as far as permissions go. And there's a lot of resources online that talk about that. I Googled that real quick before recording this, and Microsoft, if you want to just pause it, you can Google this on your own, but they do have security recommendations for both roaming profiles and home folders. But for roaming profiles, we see two things. The share permissions and the NTFS permissions. The share permissions are pretty much, they're saying, give the security group that's going to access the shared data full control. Okay, and let's do that first. Share it. I'm going to leave the administrator. The administrator is going to have access. I guess I could. Let's back up here. Sharing, advanced sharing, permissions. Here we go. So the administrator has full control. I'm going to leave that because there might be a case where you want the administrator to be able to copy copy information into this folder. Actually, I'll have to do that in a little bit when I set up a mandatory profile. So I'm going to leave this, despite what Microsoft says, and I'm going to add the group. I think I had called it like test global group, or test group G. That's a global group that has our users. So if you're a member of that group, you will get full control. Okay, so we're half done. We have the share permissions set up, and now the next step will be to configure the NTFS permissions. And that's a little more complex here. We're going to see, just to look at a couple real quick. The creator owner, so if you make something, you will have full control over it, and that's permissions only going to apply to sub-files in this folder. So pretty much if you make a folder or file, you can do whatever you want with it. Administrator has none. I'm going to cheat on that. I'll leave the administrator as full control. The security group of users needing to put data on the share, so this would be the, if you have your roaming profile stored here, pretty much what you need is to be able to list the folders in there, as well as create new folders. And we saw that if you're able to create a new folder, well then you'll because this creator owner permission, you'll have full control over that, and this local system full control. So I'm gonna do that real quick. I have dual monitors. I'm just kind of scoot this over here so I can look at it while I set the permissions up. Properties, security. Let's delete some of these. Some of this is, isn't quite right. Advanced, edit, and we will no longer inherit permissions from the C drive, the parent object. But I will leave a copy behind of what we did have. Let's take a look here. First one right now is the administrator. Administrator has full control over folders, subfolders, and files. That sounds good to me, so I'll leave that. The system, the local system, that has full control again. All the boxes are checked over this folder, subfolders, and files. That is correct as well. Administrators, I said I was gonna cheat on that and leave them full control as well. The users I'm going to delete. I don't want all users. I just want that group of users that are gonna have roaming profiles. So let's remove those. Let's add that. Test group. And they are going to have list folder and read data, and it's going to apply to this folder only. So list folder and create folders and append data. So basically they can read the stuff that's in there and then they can create their own folders. And it applies to this folder only. So I don't want this permission replicating into all the subfolders that are going to store all the various roaming profiles for our users. Okay, and then the system has full control as well. Okay, that's good. And you saw that normally a lot of times you would just create permissions from this screen here, and it's not quite as granular. So that's why we've gone in the advanced area a little more to create a little more secure environment. So in theory, we have the NTFS and share permissions set up. I can test that real quick. Better safe than sorry. You've seen that when you're asked to activate Windows 7 or Server 2008, you can say remind me later, and the machine will still work just fine. Back in the Vista days, and before Service Pack 1, if you'd done the same thing, you'd enter some reduced functionality mode, and then nothing would work. So let's see. I'm going to Server 01, and there is a shared folder on Server 01 called Profiles. Okay, so I can actually access it. So our NTFS and share permissions seem correct, and if it's working, I should be able to create a folder in here. Look at that, it works. Okay, so I think we're ready to create a roaming profile. Let's go back to let's log off here again. Let's go to our domain controller and modify our user settings here. There's a couple ways of doing this. I'll show you both ways. The server was Server 01. Profiles. Sometimes what I do just to make sure I didn't make a mistake is I'll just highlight this profile path, copy it, put it down here. Okay, it worked. So now I know I didn't make a mistake. Now each user is going to have their own subfolder, so what I could do is I could type in test user 1, or better yet, I could use the environment variable called username, %username%, and this will just auto-populate whoever the user is with, replace this variable here with the user's name. So let's see if I hit the apply button if it does that. Yeah, big deal. But this is actually kind of nice because now if I ever copy and paste this account, it'll update this username with whatever the new user's is, that I created. So that was kind of easy. One done. I'm gonna make another user here real quick. Copy. Test. Test user 3. I try to always stay with the same passwords because it never fails. I forget them. User must change password. No. We'll just say the password number expires and they can't change a password. Okay, so I've got another user here. To be complete, actually, it's already a member of this test group, and that's because I did a copy and paste. I didn't make a new user, so it pretty much copied the group membership from the first user account, and it kept that. So now what I want to do is I want to update these two users' profile paths as well. And I think what I can do is I can select them both. Hold the control button down to select the second one. And we can go to Properties, Profile, percent, username, percent. I think I hit the checkbox there. Well, here we go. I'll double check it. I missed it. Let's see here, profile. Yep, test user 3 and user 2. Okay, let's test it out. Okay, so here's the local profile, and one thing I can do to see if it worked is I can jump over here to our domain controller and look in that folder with files. I don't see it, so maybe I should log off and log on. Maybe that'll copy it up here. Log off. See, this is just like in class. I make mistakes. Unlike in class, if it doesn't work this time, I can always hit the pause button, figure it out, and then tell you what I did wrong. Ask me later. Ah, there it is. Okay. Had to log on and log off. So what do we have here? I was probably just going too quick too. I'm not sure if I can access this. Yeah, I can't access this because when the local profile was created, only test user 1 can access it. But what we do see is that my previous profile was created. The desktop gets a little messed up because because my version of Windows 7 has expired. I kind of keep hitting like evaluate now or whatever it is when it starts up. But I do believe now if I set the screen the desktop, it'll stay with it. Shouldn't be that big of a decision, should it? There we go. Okay. This is now part of the profile, so when I log on and log off again, this would follow me. Actually, what I should do to make the demo better, maybe I'll pause it and do a little bit, is I should just show you that if I start up a second Windows 7 machine, that this profile would follow it. Okay. So I just made a profile, a roaming profile for my test user 1, and the same thing would apply if I log on as test user 2. Test user 2. So we'll log on. Okay. Log off. Profile is being copied up to the server right now. There it is. That V2 on the end, I think what that was is when profiles were stored in different formats back in the XP days. So when you went from XP to Vista, Microsoft denoted a Vista profile with a V2 on the end. Okay, so now we have roaming profiles working, and we're like 3/4 the way done. Well, actually, I'll show you something else real quick. I want to talk a bit about access based enumeration. You're like, Fader, stop talking, I get it. But let's take a look at that real quick. Ask me later. Okay. We're just looking at the share on server 01. And if you look, test user 2 only sees his profile, her profile. Where is the test user 1 profile? Because if we take a look on our domain controller, there's a few folders there. Well, what's going on here is, by default, access-based enumeration has been enabled for this share. Sometimes it's on, and it's just something to be aware of that if you want to set it, if it's not enabled on a share. Again, it's a bit of a security thing. It's, why allow a user to see all the other profiles that exist on that shared folder? So what access-based enumeration is it only shows you the folders that you have access, that you are able to read or write, that you can access. So if you don't have any permissions for a subfolder, it doesn't even show up. This is a newer thing in Microsoft Windows, but it's been around forever with other operating systems. Properties. Access-based enumeration. So if I disable it, I'll probably have to connect and disconnect again, or log off and log on. Let's see here. Oh no, I just hit F5. There you are. So now the access-based enumeration turned off, I can see all the other subfolders that were created. Can't access them, but again, why even show a user these? Okay. I suppose this would even be in a larger environment where you have hundreds of users, it would just get kind of confusing. So why not just enable it? So now what we're ready to do is to create a roaming profile. And here I'm going to deviate a bit from the way that your book does it. The first thing that I'm going to do is create a profile that we're going to use. And I think for that, let's just use the profile that we created for test user 1. So I'm going to log off. And I want to copy. I pretty much want to use this profile here as my roaming profile. I'm going to start back at the client end. So typically what you do is that you create a profile, and I think, well, we'll just try it out. I can always back up a bit if I have to. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to log on as administrator. So let's pretend, okay, that you've created this user account, test user 1. You've set this profile up, the way you want it, and now you want to make that a mandatory profile that multiple users can use. Administrator. I don't know if you noticed when I typed in administrator, it went from logging on to the Windows 2008 AD01 domain to logging on locally. That's because the administrator account, that account name exists both on the machine locally as well as in our Active Directory, in our domain environment. So I want to log on to the domain. So what I have to do here is I have to specify the domain name. A lot of students kind of mess it up, and they just assume that when they're logging on, once the machine joins the domain, that you're always logging on to the domain, and that's not the case. So you just kind of want to double check that here. Let's see if I typed everything in correctly. Ask me later. We'll see if this works. I just had a thought in the back of my mind that I don't know if I have the permissions to copy this. Let's see here. Oh yeah, okay, I can access it because I'm the domain administrator. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this up to our domain controller. I'll call it mandatory. Mandatory.v2. Okay. That's our mandatory profile. Now, I'm getting there. there is a file on here called ntuser.dat that we have to edit. Let's see. It's a hidden file. I don't need that. I don't want to hide the extension of the file. I want to see the ntuser.dat, and it might be an operating system. It might be an operating system file as well. So, all right, here it is, ntuser.dat, and this is called it's a hive. It's part of the the information in here is loaded into the registry when the user logs on. So ntuser.dat is used to create. It's essentially part of the registry, and just like most things in a Windows environment, they're protected access control lists. So I have to change the permissions on this to allow all my users to be able to read this information, or whatever user is going to access this mandatory profile. And this is where I've deviated from your book if you've taken the ITnet 112 class at MATC. So, file, load hive. What are you doing, Fader? I'm supposed to be over on the server while I'm doing this. Sorry about that. Now I can't remember if I had this same thing again, right? Folder options, view, show hidden files, and don't hide extensions either. There we go. Now we're ready to go. I'm actually doing it on the correct machine now. So I'm on the domain controller and I'm editing my mandatory profile, specifically the ntuser.dat file. So I'm going to load a hive. I'm going to find it. There it is. I just make a name up here. Doesn't matter. Okay. Here it is. So we just loaded this hive, and now all that I have to do on it is just change the permissions on it. Currently, test user 1 can access it, but what I want is I guess I can remove test user 1. Remove, and I'm going to add. I'll add the global group that we're kind of using for this demo here. So if you are in this global group, you have full control. Here we go. Okay, that's it. Unload the hive. Yes. Okay, that's done. The time and date stamp has changed. And the last thing that we're going to do, not quite the last thing, I have to rename this. We're making a mandatory profile. Yes, I'm sure. There it is. Actually, don't even need these log files anymore. Delete. Okay. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a read-only folder as well. Well, okay, I guess if you're an administrator, I don't care about that. But no, I actually, what I could do is I can just add to this. There you go. So if you're part of this group here, you now have read access. Not write, just read. Good. Bet you're really excited to see this tested out now. And I'll make that dream come true. Here we go. So I'll make a new user. I was thinking I could actually just copy and paste one of these. Copy. Mandatory. I'll call it, actually, I'm going to, this is Pat F. I want to show you something real quick. Password never expires. Don't let Pat change his password. Well, if I logged on now, the profile path, but that's because I did this copy and paste. It would create a subfolder called Pat F, but I wanted to use mandatory. And I don't have to put the V2 on the end because that just automatically gets put on by it for us since it's a Windows 7 client I'm logging in from. So anyways, Pat F is going to use a profile called mandatory, and I could point multiple users to this path here. And the Pat F is a member of this global groups, which kind of gives us the permissions to access the shared folder. I'm actually kind of nervous to see if this works, but we'll see. So let's log off. I went as quick as I could on this because I didn't want this to be like a 40-minute screencast. Maybe it still is. I don't know. I'll find out when I hit the done button on this recording. Oh, this is just so exciting. I can't believe it. Anyways, it's logging on. So what should be happening now is the profile should be being copied down from our server. It's getting there. There's the family photos. I don't know. Oh, look at that. And even the background came down. So if it is a roaming profile, if I delete this, are you sure? Yes. And I think because I made the profile read-only, actually I'm curious. I haven't tried this before. Yeah, there's some things I can't do. Mandatory. But now I did delete a folder. Let's say I put a new one on here. Whatever. Put some more stuff on the desktop. Let's log off and log on again. One of the downsides of roaming profiles is depending on what your users keep on their desktop and their documents folder, profiles can get pretty big. And that's why a lot of times we'll use something called like folder redirection, which is and group policies do the same thing. But anyways, with this demo here, you can see that the profile has remained unchanged and the family photo folder cannot be deleted. Anyways, I hope this is helpful. And in summary, what did we talk about? We talked about roaming profiles. We talked about using the appropriate NTFS and share permissions to set up your profile location. Talked a bit about access-based enumeration to control what a user can see, and then we looked at creating a mandatory profile, which, in a nutshell, was setting up a profile, making it the folder read-only, and then renaming that ntuser.dat to ntuser.man. The copy process can be done with a Windows utility, but I know on some of the more recent versions of the Windows OSs, the ability to copy a profile has been kind of grayed out. So we did the old-fashioned way. We copied, we pasted it, and then we had to actually go and tweak the permissions of the ntuser.dat file so that all users could access it. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.